New transformations are something that is a standard for shonen in almost every iteration that we've had up until this point, with particular power systems, and especially when it comes to the main characters of a series. Natsu, very much a stable character with multiple different forms or a transformation or two. And one thing that I've seen in the fairy tale community that's been brought up every now and again, at least in my perspective, is Natsu potentially gaining access to his ethereous form. As we all remember, Natsu was essentially revived as the demon E.N.D. by Zeref in the original fairy tale story, but by the end of it, he is no longer considered E.N.D. or a dragon. He is just a human, with the dragon and demon seeds essentially dissipating away. And so Natsu is primarily uses Dragon Slayer magic as always, and he's still Natsu, he's still strong, and he hasn't gained any new forms in 100 Years Quest. The most is being able to access and shift between all the different types of flame magic he has consumed to power up his own Dragon Slayer magic throughout the course of the fairy tale series. But his ethereous form, him getting access to it actually does make sense and could actually be a very strong possibility. That when he awakens it will be at the end of the 100 Years Quest. Now, how long the series is going to go, I have no idea, but based on the build-up of Ignia being the seemingly final antagonist for 100 Years Quest and perhaps Fairy Tail as a whole, we might be entering the final stages of 100 Years Quest within the next few years. And doing so, Natsu is probably going to need a new transformation to cap off this whole journey. Before we get into the reasons for how Natsu can get his demon powers back, as well as how he can gain his form and the reasons behind it, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to be updated whenever I upload more videos. I want to make more fairy tale content on the channel, and starting hopefully today is the first video in that schedule, where on Fridays I will upload a fairy tale discussion video, theory video, or maybe even a what if or a ranking or a versus video for fairy tale. It won't be weekly at this moment, but I want to get fairy tale videos out more often between chapters, outside of the seemingly bulk chapter reviews that I've been doing for every 2 or 3 chapters that I have recently started to do. And I just love the series so much, I want to talk about it a bit more alongside Fortnite's The Apocalypse and make that a mainstay on the channel, and that you guys will in fact enjoy me talking about and rambling about Fairy Tail and 100 Years Quest as often as I possibly can. But enough of that lead up and preamble, let's get into the discussion. So, Natsu's ethereous form. We've actually had a tease of this when we were in the final arc of Fairy Tail, after Natsu ended up in a fit of rage after seeing Lucy potentially die in front of him, enters his ethereous state, and is going off to kill Zeref until he meets Grey, and the two of them have a brief fight until Urza breaks them up. Now, the flames are very intimidating and very demonic-like based off of the illustrations that Mashima has done for the manga. And in 100 Years Quest, when Natsu ate the flames of Ignia, he began to fight a bit more savagely and brutally, to the point where he had to be held down by Lucy as he was still engulfed in his new firepower. Now, this might be me reaching a little bit, and I might be wrong, but the flames depicted with Natsu are almost similar to how it was depicted when he was in his E.N.D. ethereous, quote-unquote transitioning state from the original manga. And again, I could be wrong, but if taken seriously, and if I am right about this, it's probably foreshadowing that Ignia might be forcing Natsu to awaken his demon powers, as they're probably dormant within him. Now, why do I think Natsu's powers are still dormant within him, despite the fact that at the end of Fairy Tail, he is no longer really considered E.N.D, and the book of E.N.D has seemingly disappeared along with Zeref? Well, very simple actually. Natsu still has his Dragon Slayer magic, right? And the Dragon Seed is no longer a part of his body and soul, as we saw at the end of Fairy Tail and Natsu's own Blade is me type moment in her monologue with a vestige of Ignia made from his subconscious. And despite that seed being gone, Natsu can still use his Dragon Slayer magic and still enter his different states, he can still enter Dragon Force, etc. So we could only stand to reason that even though the Demon Seed, which disappeared along with the Dragon Seed, it could mean that his demon powers are still very well dormant within him, or a part of his body that he himself has not been able to access or even fully awaken to. Especially with the fact that Natsu, when he was revived, was a demon, but he did not have access to his Ethereal state or his Ethereal powers, and he was taught Dragon Slayer magic, and we know the rest. So, if Natsu still has a Dragon Slayer magic, he could most likely still have his demon powers from his Ethereal form. It makes sense, because these are two big parts of what made Natsu Natsu, until, he decided that he was himself, he was not either of these things, and the seeds disappeared. Since Natsu still has his Dragon Slayer powers, his demon powers are most likely still dormant within him, and I think that's the key on where Mashima might be leading with Natsu's character towards the end. Especially with how Natsu lost control of his fire and was a bit more brutal at the start of 100 Years Quest when he ate Ignia's fire and defeated Mercphobia. It was very similar to how he acted when he was in his Ethereal state, his transition state, to his final form, so it stands to reason that we could potentially see that in the future, because I think in order for Natsu to defeat Ignia, he might have to utilize both his powers in tandem so that he could defeat Ignia and save the day from whatever the heck Ignia is planning at the end of the 100 Years Quest. Now, as for what this Ethereal form could look like, there is a bunch of fan art of it, but for now we'll utilize the image of Natsu's more dragon form with the dragon wing that we got from the Dragon's Crime movie, which I still think looks very, very cool, and could potentially be used as his E.N.D state as well, or maybe just a mixture of E.N.D and his Dragon Force, which should, again, be very cool. Now, the situation leading up to Natsu gaining or reestablishing his link with his demon powers so he can manifest him entirely would have to be in a fight against Ignia or someone almost as strong as Ignia to be able to force his E.N.D powers out of him. Because Natsu going berserk at the start of 100 Years Quest was after he ate Ignia's fire. So, it could be possible that Ignia, in his fight with Natsu would have no choice but to eat Ignia's flames again and try to control himself. But he eats a bit more of the fire, and in the heat of the battle, his Ethereal form will start to manifest, increasing his power, and he'll start looking more and more demonic. And even though Natsu won't really become a demon, it'll be his powers that start to manifest, and Natsu will have to get a hold of himself. Obviously, I think Lucy, once more, will be a part of Natsu gaining control of himself and keeping his sanity and sense of self as his powers need to be put under control. And it'll be a fight between E.N.D Natsu against Ignia for a bit until Natsu gains his composure back and just reaffirms his decision that he is human, he's not a demon, he's not a dragon, he's just Natsu, he's a human. Again, that'll be retreading old territory from the original series, but I think if he's going to get his Ethereal form like that, he would have to just reaffirm himself that he is human, he is not a demon, he is not a dragon. And thus, in the fight with Ignia, Natsu will try and access Dragon Force while utilizing that Ethereal power, and he'll probably figure out a way to enter Ethereal Dragon Force, or E.N.D mode, or whatever we'll call it. Let's call it Ethereal Dragon Force, or something like that for now. But either way, his Ethereal form will most likely be accessed before the final fight or during the final fight, as Natsu gains a full-on mastery of that power alongside his Dragon Slayer magic to create something entirely new, being like a demon dragon mode, as he battles Ignia and eventually wins. Showcasing that even though Natsu is a human, he managed to take the two parts of himself from that was given to him by his brother and his surrogate father, Igniel, made them a part of himself as a human, and he can utilize them whenever he wants, fully accepting all facets of himself 100%, and he can access them whenever he wants. I know this kind of sounds a bit all over the place, but this video wasn't really scripted, it was more just me talking about the possibilities of Natsu's Ethereal form, how he can gain access to it, and him utilizing that in tandem with Dragon Force, and just reestablishing his previous sense of self, that he is a human, and the dragon and demon parts of him when he was reborn don't matter because he's himself. Though it would be cool if Natsu was entering his Ethereal state in a fight leading up to Ignia, and then in the fight against Ignia, he would have to use both powers in tandem to create this new Ethereal Dragon Force power. Either way, I think we could end up getting that because I feel like Mashima was probably going to tee us up for Natsu in his Ethereal state in the original fairy tale, but we never really got full-on demon Natsu. So with the powers dormant within him and him still having his Dragon Slayer magic, again, it makes sense that he would potentially have access to his Ethereal powers, And leading up to the final battle of the end, Natsu would have to utilize everything that he has had over the course of the story from the original and the sequel to, for lack of a better term, become the more fully realized version of himself, accepting all parts of his origins as who he is, and just becoming basically the strongest character in the series 100% by the end of it, for all we know. Either way, I'm excited to see where Fairy Tail goes, and I do kind of hope we get something with Natsu as the theories forms. Or it could be entirely wrong, and I'm just talking out of my ass, making a whole fanfic out of all this. I understand the whole moment with Natsu choosing to be a human instead of a demon or a dragon is integral to his character and keeping in line with who he is, but I just want to state everything about the demon and the dragon powers potentially not meshing super well until Natsu just reaffirms himself and he could find some sort of balance to be fully realized as a demon dragon or something like that, demonic dragon slayer or whatever. And it would just be very cool to see. Either way, I could potentially be entirely wrong, and Mashima's not going to go in that direction and create some kind of new ultra uber powerful dragon force form for Natsu by the end of the series. All I know, Natsu's going to have a different mode or different form by the end of this 100 Years Quest. It's a shonen, it's bound to happen at some point, but I could be entirely wrong. Either way, let me know your thoughts and opinions on this potential Ethereus Natsu Dragon form happening, or this new form for Natsu happening by the end of the series in the comment section down below. I like talking about Fairy Tail. I want to start making more content revolving Fairy Tail and 100 Years Quest, whether it be fights, analysis, or just my general thoughts on what's going on in the story right now, as this is one of my all-time favorite anime and manga of all time, and I would love to talk about it more with you guys. But with all that said and done, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. It really does help, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel, and it encourages me to keep these videos going. And if there's anything in particular you want me to talk about Fairy Tail or other anime and manga, leave them in the comments down below, and I'll most likely get around to making a video about it at some point. And if it's really, really interesting that I'll have fun talking about, it'll probably be next. But with all that out of the way, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope you all have an awesome day.